On behalf of the India International Center, Maharashtra Sanskritik Ani Rannaniti Adhayana Samiti, and the Working Group on Alternative Strategies, welcome ladies and gentlemen to the discussion on who is afraid of caste. We have a distinguished panel of speakers today. We have Dr. Sharad, Baviskar, Assistant Professor, Center for French and Francophone Studies, JNU. We have Shri Dilip Mandal, former Managing Editor of India Today Hindi magazine and a very well-known journalist. We have Professor Y.S. Alone, Professor, School of Arts and Aesthetics, JNU. Then we have Meena Kandasami, poet, writer, and activist. She joins us from Chennai. We have Professor Uma Chakravarti, distinguished feminist historian who taught at Miranda House at the Delhi University and is a legendary teacher of Delhi University. Yours truly, Suhas Borker, will moderate the discussion. Some housekeeping rules. The discussion is for 90 minutes. Each speaker gets 12 minutes, which takes us from 5 p.m. to about 6. After that, we open the webinar to a Q&A session for the remaining 30 minutes or so. We will close at 6:30. A bit about the background of this meeting. We have been organizing this annual meeting at IIC on 1st May, normally a physical meeting, since 2010, with the primary focus on Dalit issues, with the cooperation of academics of JNU, led by Professor Y.S. Alone. This is a collaborative effort in honor of Baba Sahib Dr. Ambedkar. The IIC, the Maharashtra Sanskritik Ani Rannaniti Adhayana Samiti, and the Working Group on Alternative Strategies honors Baba Sahib Dr. B.R. Ambedkar today. This meeting commemorates the 130th birth anniversary of Baba Sahib Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Before we begin the meeting today, I have the sad duty to inform you and our viewers that yesterday morning, Shri Soli Sorabji, Life Trustee and former President of IIC, passed away. He was an eminent jurist and a champion of human rights and civil liberties. We shall keep a minute's silence in his honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, coming to the meeting, there are some questions which we would like to be answered during the discussion. So I'll begin. What is behind India's hypersensitivity in discussing the caste issue at any international forum, including the UN? We do not want to discuss this whole issue of caste at any international forum. What do we have to hide? Why can't we see the reality as it is, acknowledge the pervasiveness of discrimination, and confront the issues involved head on? Even 73 years after independence, Dalits and Adivasis continue to face mind-boggling social discrimination and spine-chilling atrocities across the country. India's National Crime Records Bureau data highlights this graphically. 1 in 4 Indians admit to practicing caste untouchability in some form in their homes. This shocking fact was revealed by a mega pan-India survey conducted a decade ago. Is India the prison house of caste with an extreme form of inequality? What is the castelessness of the upper caste and the idea of general and EWS category? The backlash to Dalit political assertion takes many forms. What are these? Why has there not been an Indian societal response to Baba Saheb's annihilation of caste? And is this silence a tool to maintain anarchy in Indian society? Will mere tokenism and lip service go on, or will India jettison the centuries-old dehumanizing baggage of caste stigma once and for all? Caste being antithetical to democracy, who is afraid of democracy? Now, without further ado, I would like Professor Uma Chakravarti to open the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhas, and the team. I've been thinking about how to confront this problem, because it's not that we don't confront it on a daily basis, opening the newspaper, seeing the atrocities that are committed, as was pointed out. But it's particularly, I think, apt today to talk about caste. It's a combination of the focus on Ambedkar as well as today's May Day. So actually, one of the things that seems to disappear when we talk about caste is that it's also, the caste system is also a system of labor extraction, which I'll come to in a minute. Now, you can write and speak about caste over many hours, and you'll still not be able to get the the horror of what it constitutes. But for the moment, let me just point out that perhaps I'm the oldest person over here, and perhaps I'm the only one who would have been made aware of Baba Saheb's the importance of the 1956 conversion, because I was a young person at that time in school, and I do remember the stir it caused, particularly in circles that wanted to pretend that caste was some kind of benign system, or if at all there was a system around it. And I do remember the stir that it caused. I think that moment never left me, because when I started to think about what I wanted to research on, I sort of naturally gravitated to Buddhism, because that's the religion to which, that's the conversion moment for Ambedkar. That is his statement, I was born a Hindu. I may have been born a Hindu, but I will not die a Hindu. And it's the last act he performs before he exits Hinduism, Hinduism/Brahmanism/ the caste system. And so to that extent, I think thinking about caste in all its manifest ways, but also thinking about it as being a moment which forced the post-Republic India to confront the overflow and the excess and the existence of caste when the Constitution had come, and you could pretend that everything was perfectly fine. And how important that moment was is also recognized from the president at that moment in 1956, who's Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. That was the year when it was 2,500 years of Buddhism, and so a book was brought out to commemorate it. Radhakrishnan wrote the introduction, the foreword to this volume, and he had this to say: the Buddha was born a Hindu, he lived as a Hindu, and he died as a Hindu, in a sense denying the difference between Hinduism and Buddhism at that moment, at that very dramatic moment when actually where Baba Saheb had made his open declaration and had made a very public demonstration of his conversions. So, what is this structure, and why do we need to understand it and confront it? We have to confront it, of course, but we have to also understand it. And I think, in that sense, the serious consideration that maybe scholars and ethnographers and so on had placed on the caste system may have been around us, but it was really Baba Saheb who gave us the full complement of the manner in which this system existed all around us. And to that extent, I think, and that's something that sociologists took a long time to recognize. It's a unique form. Why do I call it a prison house? It's a unique form of inequality peculiar to South Asia. Now, inequality is known the world over, but and in early societies as well as in modern societies. But this is a form of inequality which is extreme, which is specific to South Asia. It is actually the it's a unique form of exploiting the labor of a substantial segment of our population, and at the same time stigmatizing them, which led to a much more effective extraction of labor, and simultaneously, so you extract the labor and then simultaneously you disempower them, because the ideology glosses it over as high and low, as these are duties, these are ordained, these are divinely made, these are cooperative systems and stuff like that, which of course you'll find even now put into your often into your school textbooks. It's the most effective system of othering known to humanity, because it has created permanent others. That is, by birth, some people are put into the category of the other. It also fixes permanently the question of who is to be revered and who is to be placed in a contemptuous location. So it is really a prison house from which it is very difficult to escape, although people have historically always tried to escape the workings of the caste system. And one doesn't have time to go into this, but we also know that it is not something that is accepted except at the top. For sections lower down below, it is not something that has their consent in any sense of the term. So here is this system, which comes with birth, doesn't go even with death, as famously as Kumud Pavade pointed out. And what does it do? It evolved, and it's a system that evolved over a 1,000-year period. In the end, it leads to three things, in my opinion: resource control, legitimizing it; thought control, which actually makes it difficult to even think against the grain and challenge it; and most importantly, and I want to stress this, control over reproduction, because the mode of reproduction is fixed permanently as the endogamous marriage system, which reproduces the entire baggage into from one generation to another to the future, so that resource control, resource reproduction, and biological reproduction, caste reproduction, all go simultaneously. So to my mind, it's a huge and complex structure, which is what we are confronting. Now, let me also indicate that this is not the only way in which early South Asians considered you could live and organize yourself. And to my mind, the most important challenge, even as caste was coming into existence, caste system was being codified, came from Buddhism. And in fact, there are sermons after sermons where the Buddha is arguing with the Brahmins and challenging their claim to superiority and to birth-based rights of reverence. So there were huge challenges. And Ambedkar also, Baba Saheb has written, in fact, has wrote on the theory of how the Dalits came into existence, because he sees them as actually the failed Buddhist community, the community that fails to establish itself as a mode of organizing society over here. And it is that segment that was reduced, because they would not give up on their philosophy and their ideas, that they were then reduced to becoming Dalits in the structure that came into existence. There is, this is a serious point of view, but we must also recognize that if after so many years, when Baba Saheb actually chose to go into Buddhism, there is a history of the way in which it was almost naturally going to be the choice that he would make, because it was also an experiment in South Asia, and it was an experiment which showed you that you could organize society in completely different ways. So, and it was challenged. Brahmanism, casteism, and the stigmatizing of others, and the particular exploitative form of labor extraction and the denial of dignity to humans was challenged even in medieval times, partly through bhakti, which carried on a tradition of trying to claim humanism. So in a sense, we have a whole series of efforts to challenge it. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded, because the power of caste is that it reproduces itself. And you have, for instance, the Lingayats in Vaishnavites challenging Brahmanism and caste, and then ending up as a little caste group of its own. So in a sense, the power of caste to gobble up, eat up whatever is the opposite point of view is something that historically we have seen. So I was a little distressed with the formulation of who's afraid of caste, because it was, and it could have been who should not be afraid of caste, because really everybody should be afraid of caste. But be that as it may, I think starting off today with who should be afraid of caste, I would begin with fundamentally humanists are afraid of caste, because humanists actually believe in the essential humanity in the human being, which is a mode of recognizing the others rather than stigmatizing the other. So humanists would be certainly afraid of caste. To my mind, constitutionalists have to be afraid of caste. I mean, what is the meaning of the Constitution if actually you're not going to end somehow? Post-constitutional society cannot erase caste from our history. So constitutionalists, in their very essence, must be afraid of the power of caste, not of caste, but of the power of caste. And I think all women, and especially feminists, will have to see the challenge that the caste system presents to women, who are equally, not equally, but unequally, let's say, facing the consequences of the caste and patriarchy structure that we have, actually denying humanity and agency to women in terms of making choices. It's denying it to everybody. But I think as feminists, the endogamous marriage system is something that you have to stand against. There's no way you can actually concede, because that's the way in which the caste system is perpetuated, along with the unequal resources and so on. So it's really, it's a package which has created enormous suffering to people who are at the receiving end of the power of the caste system. And whether it is violence against those at the lower end of society, both gender-based and all stigmatization, heaped with abuses, atrocities of various kinds. I mean, this is this is a system that everyone has to be against. And so anti-caste activists, humanists, constitutionalists, feminists, all of us have to be against Dalit activists. All anti-caste activists have to be against caste. And because you can see its workings in society and the manner in which it has actually resulted in us being desensitized to other human beings. The worst thing that the caste system has done is to deny the humanity of others. And to that extent, I think that's a system that just must go. It needs to be smashed. And if you have to talk about it in international forum, across the board, write about it, it's got to be done, because I think the monstrosity of the caste system is simply something you cannot make a deal with.
Thank you.
I'll stop.
Thank you, Professor Chakravarti. I think you have opened the prison house of caste, so to say, and the package which comes with that. Thank you very much. Now, can I request Dilip to come on and tell us about the castelessness of the upper caste, and then also the idea of the general and EWS category, which you mentioned in the discussion we had prior to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Borker Saab, and thanks everybody, thanks the team. And I'm opening up the debate and approaching it from a different perspective. Actually, what Professor Uma Chakravarti, how she has seen the whole problem and whole problematic. I'm just opening up the debate with the premise that it's true that everybody should be afraid of caste, and caste is the problem of everybody. But especially in my field, that is mass communication and sociology, I'm talking about how the subject matter of caste is being discussed and how the upper caste individualizes the caste and how it all become about the Dalits and OBCs. These categories are the subject matter when we discuss caste. So I'm starting this discussion with the story of the EWS reservation. And as you know that in 2019, this act was passed by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in such a hurry. It's one of the acts which has been passed in hardly, I think, 47 or 48 minutes. Once it was placed in Lok Sabha, and then it was passed in after 45 minutes discussion. Then it was passed by Rajya Sabha, and immediately after that, the budget notification came, and it was about, as they have said in Press Information Bureau press release, and that was reported by all the media houses in newspapers and channel, that this is a reservation for EWS, economically weaker section. And if I read the budget notification, it says that it is about any economically weaker sections of citizens other than the classes mentioned in clause 4 and 5 of article 15 and 16. So what does that mean? Article 14 and 15 specifically talks about scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes, which were that category was earlier known as socially and economically weaker sections. So when the budget notification says that this is a reservation for EWS or Garib Ka reservation or reservation for the poor, what it actually tried to achieve? We know that according to the caste hierarchies and the economic and social reality of India, the category which was not included in the broad categories of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and OBCs, we can generally, not in specifically sociological term, we can say that category as upper caste. But the government of India and sociologists and mass media practitioners, everybody is saying this category as economically weaker section. Whereas the income limit for EWS is same as that of OBCs, that is 8 lakh per annum rupees per annum. So why we are saying upper caste poor as EWS, whereas OBC there is a economic criteria for them also, and the income limit is fixed at 8 lakh, but still they are known as OBC. So I think that even if you see the job advertisements and all related notifications and all that, you will find that that category known as general category or EWS. So it in a way saying that other caste actually have caste, whereas the upper caste people, they don't have caste. So caste is the thing for the lower caste, and that automatically frame upper caste as casteless category. And I think this is a huge problem. And if now if you see the academia or the university system, how sociology and other disciplines are taught, you will find that when we talk about uh, caste problem, it's always about the problems of Dalits and OBCs and all that. So we have Center for Dalit Studies. We don't have Center for Brahmin Studies or Center for Kshatriya Studies or Center for Upper Caste Studies. And that was the problem that famous sociologist Martin Nicholas I exactly can't remember the year that was most probably in 1963 American Sociological Congress meeting, and he said in that meeting that very his very famous thesis was, and this name is most probably Fat Cat Sociology, and in that thesis he says that sociology is all about looking at the bottom and reporting to the top. It's like eyes down to study the activities of the lower classes and subject population. Those activities actually which created problem for the government power or and that is the category he define as the societies. And actually, the class of rulers always identify society uh, uh, as their society as the society, and in the same way because their problem becomes the problem of the society. So caste problem is actually if we take the example of India, caste problem is about Dalit problem. So Dalits were studied and other categories are not studied. So as far as I know, in last 20 years we have only one PhD thesis on Brahmins, and I think that was in Belgaum University, most probably written by Ramesh Berry, whereas you will find at least 500 books on Dalits and OBCs, how Mangs and Mahar, what are the contradictions between these categories, how Jatav and Pasis, they are fighting with each other. You will find a number of theses on these topics. So actually Indian sociologists should owe their job to Dalits. They are their subject matter, and they study the Dalits and who are got beat up, who got shot up and all that, who face all the problems, and they were the subject matter, and that becomes the source of prosperity and eminence of Indian sociologists and political scientists. Also, they should actually owe their job to these categories. They are the subject matter, and I think this is the actually huge problem. Just imagine a situation in which the habits, problems, and motiveness of upper caste and wealthy and powerful were daily scrutinized and tabulated by thousands of researchers, and all were analyzed and published in hundreds of publications. And Dalits and OBCs actually knows what are the strategies being used by upper caste when they decided to leave aside Sanskrit and adopt English education and all that. If at all, this is I don't think it's being done in India, and if all those publications were written in a way that even a um, 15 or 16-year school dropout can understand those theses and papers, just imagine the how the whole paradigm changes. So, but this is not happening, and caste is um, uh, studied in a manner that this is a problem of Dalits and OBCs and all that. So even if you take the example of whatever M.N.S. Srinivas, he studied the dominant caste. He never studied the Brahmins, and I think that's again a problem with the masters of sociology, like Andre Bete. He says that caste has ceased to play an active role in reproduction of inequality. He argued that, you can you imagine, and he argued that it's not an institution of great strength among influential caste, and caste is a problem because of there is a reservation and all that, and because of that it is continuing. So I think this again is a issue which we should discuss, and we think that how problematic this is. So I think this whole idea of castelessness of upper caste, they have achieved it only because in a way they actually succeeded in translating their cultural and social capital into this other form of capital, and now they can easily say that we are casteless because we are not practicing caste. But if we connect the dots, and if it's about accumulated capital, so we can easily say that it's not something which they become whatever this idea of merit and all that. ये तो ऐसा नहीं है कि इनको अभी आ गया है, ये एक continuity में जो इनका cultural capital, the connections and ये these networks, and they have taken benefit of that. अब वो डायस्पोरा के तौर पर हो सकता है अमेरिका में जाकर कर सकते हैं, हमें कास्ट से कोई लेना देना नहीं, वी डोंट हैव एनीथिंग टू डू विद कास्ट, लेकिन वो एक I think there is a continuity. So, and even this is camouflaged in many other ideas. This idea of nation building, how it was about replacing the British bureaucracy with mostly Brahmins during the time of Nehru, and they named it as nation building. They never called it how the domination of British in bureaucracy was transformed into domination of Brahmins in bureaucracy. They called it nation building. So these are all the nomenclatures.
Dilip, I just wanted you to spend a minute more And can we talk about also, as you are a very senior journalist, about how the journalist, paradigm of media is dominated by the upper caste, totally. I mean, you have broken the ceiling at some level, but how it is dominated?
Yeah, I'm one of the very, very, very rare exception in Hindi media. Actually, so it's dominated by Brahmins and castes and all those upper caste only. So, yeah. So I conclude that part of discussion by saying that if we want, that caste should be discussed not as a problem of the list, not a problem at least created by the list. Rather, we have to study the problem, as Baba Sahab in his famous thesis Annihilation of Caste. He addressed that speech not to the Dalits. He 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 was addressing meeting of upper caste people. Jat Pat Todak Mandal and Ari Samajis was supposed to be in that meeting. Nobody was supposed to be a Dalit. So I think the onus of demolishing or annihilating the caste is a task which the upper caste should take on themselves, not because Dalits can't break that social structure. And as you are asking specifically about Indian media, so it was first pointed out by a black journalist, Kenneth J. Cooper, in 1996 when he was looking for a Dalit journalist. And at that time, after he tried for almost 2 weeks, and he was unable to find a single Dalit journalist in 1996. And after that, many studies were done. One study was done in 2006 by Yogendra Yadav and his team, and that again came to the conclusion. They again concluded that not a single Dalit was there in any decision-making position in national media. And the latest study is by Oxfam and News Laundry in 2019, and that study also is saying the same thing. Even Robin Jeffrey and 79, and they have done empirical studies on the social composition of the newsrooms, and they all concluded that these social categories are missing, and it reflects on the content also. If there is any discussion on reservation or caste census or anything to do with caste, we will find that bias and all that. So again, this what I was saying is nomenclatures and terminologies. You will see that the problem with it, almost 70 to 80%. I haven't done, and I'm saying with just common sense. I don't have any empirical data to prove that at this moment. But almost 70% stories about the lists are about atrocities. So when we close our eyes, think about the list. So for a urban young person, that's a thing which comes to his or her mind as Dalit as a category, with the other term that comes to his or her mind is atrocity. So these are, I think, the problem.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, I conclude my.
Oh, thank you. I think
thing.
you've done, you've enlarged the discussion, and you brought in a critique of the dominant sociologists, who come with their baggage and then limit their studies according to that baggage. So now I would request Meena to come on. She's going to tell us about specific reference to Tamil Nadu, about how the backlash of Dalit political assertion takes many forms. Now, before she does that, we are meeting in extraordinary circumstances. This webinar is taking place under very extraordinary circumstances. I mean, the second surge of the COVID-19 pandemic is on, and our health infrastructure has collapsed. And there is a tremendous struggle as we discuss who is afraid of caste. We have also to discuss, I mean, in that paradigm of complete, the state has withdrawn, you see. It's a very serious situation. Now, Meena has written a poem which she wrote on the 25th of April, just a few days ago. So before she comes on, I just want to read a few lines of that to express our angst at what is happening. She's given the voice to that angst. So she says, "We mourn for the dead, we mourn for our numbness, we mourn for the lost pride that let us say each day, India is my country, to which we now feebly add, my country is a crematorium." These are very harsh words, but they express the pain, the anguish, of our people. So, Meena, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Suhas Borker, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk with a lot of people I personally look up to, like Dilip, Mandal, and Professor Chakravarti. So when I wanted to talk about Dalit political assertion and the backlash in Tamil Nadu, I wanted to actually kind of go along. The reason I started thinking along these lines is the day after the elections, two young Dalit men were killed in Arakonam district because they were canvassing for a Dalit party, Dalit-led party, which is the Viduthalai Chiruthaigal Katchi in Tamil Nadu, and so they were brutally murdered. And the fact that this kind of murders happen also, it was happening in the context of what, on social media people were like doing the hashtags, hashtag Dalit History Month, hashtag this, hashtag that, and then this murder happens. And I, for some reason, was thinking right from Kilwin Money, which is, in 1968, an entire village of Dalit people, 44 men, women, and children were burnt to death because they were striking for higher wages. All of them were landless, all of them were laborers, agricultural laborers, and all of them belonged to Dalit communities. And the reason this happened was because, there was so much caste Hindu and dominant caste anger at the fact that Dalits are politically organizing and the Dalits are trying to represent themselves under the communist red flag. So this was not going to, be taken lightly. The fact that Dalits could speak out, they could hit back, they could organize, they could have a political identity, made people... yeah, and so the fact that this was happening, caused such a backlash that, people were killed for it. 44 people lost their lives. And this has been a bloody history throughout the history of Tamil Nadu. So on the one hand, when you talk about Tamil history, we are very proud of, what the Dravidian movement has achieved, what Periyar has achieved, which are unquestionable. But we also have extremely harsh reactions to, Dalit political assertion. So this could be seen, for instance, in Melevala, where, in near Madurai, where Panchayat elections were held in 1997. And because Dalits dared to stand in the Panchayat election, 7 of them were killed, including the Panchayat president, Melavalava Murugesan, who was actually beheaded. And some of those things which were said around that time included the fact that, a Dalit can be president of India, but we are not going to allow a Dalit to become president of this tiny village Panchayat. And so we are starting from, this kind of extreme anti-Dalit hatred, but it's also a hatred that is not, simply conditioned because of caste, but it's also a very visceral hatred that wants to prevent them. And even today, you see, Dalit women who are elected Panchayat chiefs are not allowed to sit. They are asked to sit on the floor. They're not allowed to hoist the flag during Independence Day or Republic Day. And so all of these become, instances, as Professor Dilip Mandal said, these could count as atrocities. But I just want to go back again and again to instead of concentrating on the atrocity aspect, on what Dalits have been trying to do against the system. So, for instance, when the Vidudalai Chiruthaigal Katchi started in the late 90s, and they Tirumavalavan contested the elections for the first time in the constituency of Chidambaram, and polled as in the third front or independent candidate around 2.5 lakh votes. More than 100 or 200 Dalit settlements were burnt. So, and this was like widespread rampage, widespread violence, which was unleashed just to say, no, we are not going to allow you to, enter. And this was like largely done by the 1 year Sangam of the day, which is like dominant Shudra caste. And of course, now we are, are within the space of from, let's say, 1999, when this was what the violence that they faced, until the election commission, of course, refused to countermand the elections. They refused to, call for new elections to take place, and they just, completely went with the caste Hindus who had done this level of, booth capture. They had done, just basically made so many Dalits homeless and all of that. So when we look from 1999 to what is now happening in 2021, when again there is this kind of backlash, I wanted to, pay a little attention to this electoral political process, but also look behind it as an ideological process. So in terms of a political process, there's a very interesting paper on this by Michael Collins, who studied the VCK. And one of those things that he says, which is quite interesting in terms of what is it that makes Dalit parties still, Dalit politicalization, what are the roadblocks to Dalit politicalizations, or we may say, one of the questions is the big question of finance or the economic independence, dependence upon allies. The fact that a Dalit party cannot capture power on its own, at least given, the economic situations in Tamil Nadu, and the fact that, they also are taking very clear anti-corporate lines. They stand for workers' rights and all of this, which makes them, have to ally with one or the other of the major Dravidian parties. And the other thing is also what Michael Collins did was he was shadowing Dr. Ravi Kumar during his campaign to be elected as an MP in Virupuram district, and he was saying the question of how even to enter for Dalit representatives to enter caste Hindu streets, they had to go with caste Hindu representatives. So yeah, thanks for intimating me about the time. So one of those things about the VCK and why I decided to talk about them in the context of this is because Hugo Goringe and I, when we were working on the paper, we're trying to look at the kind of the way in which VCK, the short for Vidudalai Chiruthaigal Katchi, how the VCK frames what is happening in India. So how do they look at the BJP? So the VCK has an ideological line that at the moment what is happening is a battle between the RSS, BJP, Sangh on the one hand and Ambedkarite parties on the other, or Ambedkarites on the other, and that the struggle against the BJP is a struggle against Manusmriti, it's a struggle against Sanatana Dharma, it's a struggle against Brahmanism, it's a struggle against political Hindutva. And the fact that a Dalit party, a Dalit-led party has gone, is in many ways championing the ideological struggle against the BJP and preventing its entry into Tamil Nadu is a phenomena that I think holds a lot of lessons for the rest of India. So, for instance, when we study, or we're seeing a lot of studies, for instance, about the BSP, and people are like, amazed, like they captured state power and they did all of this, but all of that came at the expense of a certain ideological dilution of what Kanshiram stood for, or even earlier what Dr. Ambedkar would have stood for and what you'd have wanted. And when this kind also, I want to be brief. So one of those things that is happening at the moment, when the VCK is articulating this kind of thing, is also that the local caste dominant parties are very much borrowing the language of the Sangh Parivar, the language of the oppressive BJP, in trying to other the VCK, to other Dalit people, and especially Dalit men. So when Sangh Parivar says that Muslim men are committing love jihad and trying to make them into objects of hate, in the particular context of Tamil Nadu, it's very common for the BJP as well as a lot of dominant caste parties like the PMK or local dominant caste parties in the west or the south of Tamil Nadu to allege that Dalit men are doing what is called Nadaga Kadal, or what is a staged love. So they go ahead and spread this rumor that, Dalit men are responsible for staged love. They're trying to lure women, they're trying to entrap women, they're trying to cheat women. And this kind of what is, quote unquote social engineering, in which parties aim to come to power only by consolidating anti-Dalit hatred, is out there in the open, and it kind of is a slap on the face for Tamil people who intensely and really believe that we are following the legacy of Periyar. Because on the one hand, when this is happening, there are also all of these caste remnants, all of these patriarchal remnants, all of these anti-Dalit remnants that are being harvested, so to say, as a kind of hate. And it's also the fact that it centers women. Professor Chakravarti was saying something like, what kind of a feminist will agree to an arranged marriage, or what kind of a feminist will agree to be within the system of endogamy? But this is precisely the question that's also here in Tamil Nadu, for instance, because we have the history of self-respect marriages. And so when Periyar was conducting these marriages, he was seen as no less than a revolutionary. And on the other hand, today we have, for any instance of an intercaste marriage that involves a Dalit man and a woman of, a Shudra or a Savarna community, the entire dominant caste social setup does not see that as progressive. They see that as this is something that was instigated by a political party, as if this was instigated as part of a giant conspiracy. And I think this is it's so infantilizing to women, but it's also so outrageous that this is how that especially in the age of deep fakes, in the age of social media lies, in this what is this paid news and all of this so much falsehood that is prevailing, that this kind of propaganda is being used to such great extents. And I think the VCK is also quite interesting for people to understand the political assertion, or as it's happening in Tamil Nadu, in the fact that while a lot of political parties would are trying to essentialize what their identity is about, we have the VCK, which is often portrayed as portrayed by the others and sidelined for being a Dalit party. On the other hand, has been at the forefront of talking about issues like OBC reservation. So when 10,000 OBC students on a national level were denied reservations, it was kind of became imperative for the VCK was the first person to speak about it. And I think this kind of trying to harness and not look at OBCs as an enemy in spite of what is going on, but instead to join them within the democratic struggle against caste is very essential, and something that we have to sort of identify with. And I don't have much time left, because otherwise I was interested to talk about the BJP and its campaign on the Manusmriti, which kind of occupied a lot of headlines in late November, December. But that's for another day. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk.
Yeah, you can take up that issue when we come to the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have portrayed the entire, how the whole anti-Dalit activities are going on in Tamil Nadu. Thank you very much. Now, can I ask Professor Alone to come? You see, Professor Alone has raised a very valid point that there's been no societal response to Baba Sahib's annihilation of caste. I mean, till now, we have come through 73 years, and yet there's been no societal response. Now, is it deliberate? I mean, he's put this very, very, critical question to us. Over to Professor Alone. Yeah, Professor Alone?
There's bandwidth issue at his end, it seems.
Oh, okay. So then probably we'll come to him later. Can we go to Sharad then? Sharad, can you go ahead? I mean, you question, we said who's afraid of caste. You say who's afraid of democracy. So go ahead, Sharad.
Am I audible?
Sharad?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much. With the permission of Professor Alone, I would start my brief section. It's a really challenge to kind of develop any concept or idea in this 12 minutes, but I will try my best. So as Suhaji told us that we are going through very trying times, where we can see that a free play of unequal forces, and these unequal forces are not due to some otherworldly reasons, but they are due to some historical reasons. And these trying times of this pandemic, this COVID situation, these difficulties are accentuated due to the kind of inequalities which are with extreme inequalities of our society. And in this context, I would like to offer some of my thoughts about the question of caste. Actually, there is a great deal of literature written on the institution of caste. I mean, there is a textual understanding or understandings of caste, and there is empirical understandings, interpretations of caste. There are interpretations from below, there are interpretations from above, in all these things. And before I proceed, I would like to specify that caste is one of the institutions responsible for the inequalities in our society. It's not the only institution, but one of the important pre-democratic, or let's call it anti-democratic institutions, due to which there are inequalities. But other than caste, there are other institutions also that are also responsible in inequality: gender, class, region, language, but primarily a caste which has a very peculiar way of reproducing inequalities, perpetuating it, legitimizing it. It's not just inequality of materiality, it's inequality. It's like what I call it, caste is the very category of vision and division of the world that most of us, we Indian, we wake up in the morning and consciously or unconsciously we do subscribe to the institution of caste through a variety of gestures. These are language gestures, these are our day-to-day, our rituals, and all this. This is not just about kind of, that explicitly just dropping somebody's surname doesn't make us casteless, or just kind of, as what Mandal ji said, that just invisibilizing our caste privileges and kind of, buying that good conscience doesn't make us casteless. Actually, it's a very prevalent, and it is actually the very principle, very category of our comprehension, vision, and division of the world. And as I said, that caste as an institution is pre-democratic and anti-democratic. And the question of caste has been approached, dealt with by kind of, different paradigms. It's not a single paradigm. There are different paradigms kind of operating in our intellectual political space. And there is unanimity that, the institution of caste is not good, is not desirable. But whether that it's not good, it's not desirable, this conclusion is not necessarily for the sake of democracy, but these are for a variety of reasons. And I would like to explain briefly what are those reasons. If you just kind of briefly look at this 3-4 paradigms, dominant paradigms of our intellectual space. Let us start with Gandhian paradigm. Like, even Gandhi considered caste as something bad. I deliberately emphasize the word even, because till 30s he found that, caste is not a bad thing. But after 30s, he saw, it took time for a person like Gandhi to see, that caste is a bad thing. And he didn't consider kind of, Varna system as a bad thing, but caste is the excess of Varna system, which is bad. So now you see, for him, he found it problematic. So then later on, he became kind of, that caste is a bad thing. That Gandhian paradigm also considered caste undesirable. The second paradigm, but Gandhi didn't consider it as kind of a caste something which is in the state of culture. Actually, when he called kind of, Bahishkrit Bharat as Harijan, then we understand his vantage point also. So in this limited time, I would not be able to elaborate all these things. The second paradigm is that of Savarkar. I mean, today his successors are calling the shots. And according to Savarkar, even Savarkar said that caste is a bad thing. And but for Savarkar, it was not necessarily ethical or democratic concern. His concern was more about, that those people who are below the line of pollution, that in that line of pollution that separated the touchables and untouchables, he was afraid that if these people would join Christianity or Islam, and demographically that would be a very, very bad idea. So for him, it was a strategic kind of, move that, let us bring back all kind of, all these Hindu people in one fold. Let us dissolve them in one huge block to take on Christianity and Islam. So that was he was a very kind of, it was a very different strategic kind of move behind this. His kind of asking for abolition of caste system, but people who were on the kind of, ground, they didn't take his idea very seriously. And then there was this Marxist paradigm, the third paradigm, that for them, they also considered caste as something very problematic, but they were very confident of the fact that the capitalist relations would liquidate this superstructure in the course of time, and they thought that on its own caste would evaporate. And so for them, they didn't find it necessary to engage with the question of annihilation of caste. So but the difference between these three paradigms and the fourth paradigm that I'm going to elaborate is that of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. For him, he said that the caste is not just kind of, it's about material inequalities. It is also kind of inequality. It is actually, it is premised on the idea of multitude of states. In social anthropology or political sociology, we do use these words that like the way we say nation states, there are caste states. And there are caste patriotism. There are people who are patriotic about their caste, that in the morning they wake up and they said, I'm a proud this, I'm proud that. They paint their bike, their cars with that caste patriotism. And Ambedkar said, how can you transform, convert this multitude of caste states into one democratic nation? Because carrying this caste state, and also saying that I'm a proud Indian, it's like, this is a major contradiction that most of us Indians, we are carrying within ourselves, and it amounts to like squaring the circle. And that's why this text, that annihilation of caste, for Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, annihilation of caste is precondition for the very possibility of the constitution of democratic nation. You cannot have democratic nation with this kind of, these subjective fictions. Like, the way Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar uses the word fiction, we have to understand the conceptual meaning of that fiction. Fiction in a very peculiar way he's using. He's saying that, when he says that equality is fiction, for him, is that it belongs to this philosophical horizon. It's a thinkable. In the same manner, caste is also fiction. Let me explain what I understand by fiction. Fiction is that whenever there is associated form of life, or let's say there is a associated form of life, it has to have some kind of fiction without which there is the transition from the state of nature to state of culture is impossible without some kind of fiction. So there are a variety of fictions that underpin our social life. Like, currency itself is a fiction, religion is a fiction, and without meaning any disrespect to those people who might find this word fiction kind of problematic. But fiction in philosophy is used in this sense, that in order to make any social or associated life possible, we have to posit some kind of fiction. And Rousseau says that that democracy is also fiction. When Rousseau says that democracy is a fiction, it means that it belongs to some horizon, and we have to move towards that. And that's why Babasaheb Ambedkar also uses the notion of equality, so that we are not equal, but we have to posit some kind of fiction, and equality is a fiction, and one has to posit this fiction in order to realize, or in order to mitigate these inequalities. And these inequalities are not necessarily due to the let's say natural differences, because in the state of nature there are differences, in the state of culture or in history there are inequalities. So this, what fiction is used in that sense. So what is the difference between caste as a fiction and caste as democracy as a fiction? Caste as a fiction, as Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar would say, that as a fiction, it doesn't allow intersubjective communion. Like, like in order to constitute ourselves like equal citizens of this democratic nation, we should be able to commune with each other on equal footing. But this caste subjectivities would never allow us to constitute ourselves in one common humanity, because caste system, which implies kind of thousands of subjectivities without intersubjective fiction. So for I'm left with what time left for? Okay, 2 minutes. So the problem is that now just kind of I wanted to take the general question of this webinar in my conclusion, is that who is afraid of caste? Actually, this question is ambiguous because this question has two things inbuilt in this question, like who is afraid of annihilation of caste or afraid of the perpetuation of caste? Because somebody says, who is afraid of caste? This question would confuse some of us. But actually, those who are liberticide, who do not want democratic constitution of our undemocratic society, they are afraid of the annihilation, the very project of annihilation of caste, precisely for this reason, that all of these so mainstream intellectuals were aware of the kind of the crippling effects of the institution of caste, but nobody took the project of annihilation of caste seriously. Why this project was not taken seriously by the state apparatus? All that they did, that they reduced the question of caste to the question of poverty. Like, what they have done, they have gone to the villages and they have just kind of spent bit of money on Dalit bastis, and it was not about that. It was about actually the very kind of mental dispositions with which we live in our day-to-day life. It has to be transformed there also. It is not just about material kind of redistribution, because now the times are so regressive. We are going through actually the times of regression and counter-revolution, that this mitigation of inequality is also considered to be problematic. I think I have exhausted my 12 minutes, it seems. How much time I'm left with, sir?
No, you can go ahead. Actually, we're waiting for Professor
Okay.
Alena to join.
He's still not around. All right. Yeah.
Another minute.
Yeah. So, like, what happened to this? The paradigm, Ambedkarite, fully Ambedkarite paradigm, in which we find that that caste is not just about kind of the problem of Dalits or problem of Shudras or problem of Atishudras. It was also kind of this is a systemic problem. Just as I would like to repeat this, just dropping one surname doesn't make us casteless. Okay, just once in a while going to some platform and kind of giving a speech saying that a caste is a bad thing doesn't make us casteless. Casteless, we have to actually, it's a transformation, it's a metamorphosis of our, actually it's attitudinal problem. We have this attitude problem, disposition problem, and we have been doing this kind of caste related rituals because there is a co-substantial rapport between kind of the caste system and our ritualistic life. What RSS has done, RSS has systematically opened a kind of thousands of kind of chota mota dukan, adhyatmik dukan, through which they are actually blunting the possibility of revolt against these inequalities and bringing kind of our kind of masses into that fold. So the point is that now, at least now, when we are going through this trying times of not only COVID-19 but also trying times of this regressive regime, this regime of counter-revolution, we must take this project of annihilation of caste very seriously. It's not just about kind of a problem of Dalits or problem of Shudras or problems of the Shudras. It's a problem of our whole society. You cannot be safe kind of you cannot detach yourself from the whole kind of problem. You're part of that. Because many people, they just think that speaking in some smart language makes them casteless. No, it doesn't make them. I have been living in this university for 15 years, and I have faced this kind of caste issues. And like हम यहाँ पे JNU में जाकर फ्रीडम स्क्वायर पे बड़े बड़े लंबे लंबे भाषण दिए, लेकिन मैंने सेंटर में देखा है कि कास्टिस्ट प्रॉब्लम इनके अंदर इतना डीप रूटेड होता है. And this, if it is not taken seriously, there's no point kind of crying about this regression and all that, because we have not taken this caste issue seriously. It is not the only factor on the basis of which the inequalities are there, but it is one of the principal factors. I think with which I would stop here, and I would thank Suhaji and Maharashtra Sanskritik and Rannaniti Adhayana Samiti and IIC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharad. I mean, there's been a remark, in fact, which expresses my remark also on your presentation. There is Sujata Jaine from Bhubaneswar. She says that Sharad has been very provocative. Okay, so thanks a lot. Now we will go to Professor Alone. I hope your bandwidth survives. Now, you see, what I was telling earlier was that you have been very strong on this. There's been no response to annihilation of caste, Baba Sahib's whole idea. So why there has been no response? I mean, let's hear you now. Professor Alone.
Well, thank you, Suhas, and thanks IIC for organizing this event. I'm sorry I was little off because of the technical issues, but I'm glad that I'm back to the studio. 1936, Baba Sahib has written his magnum opus text called Annihilation of Caste, and it's been almost 84 years now, and how many people have really responded to this particular text? That is also one has to see. And why there is a studied silence. You see, the studied silence is also needs to be investigated as to why there has been a studied silence on this particular text or on the project of annihilation of caste. The political democracy in the country, or for that matter, the caste in India has always been seen only from the perspective of untouchability and touchability, but not as a whole systemic problem. And Dr. Ambedkar was the first one to project this as a to talk about it as a systemic problem. So the system is very important to understand. Now, when we come to the people who are educated, because that text was addressed to the caste Hindus and not to the untouchables. Though there is so many things for everyone, but irrespective of that, the caste Hindus in India or even in the post-independent India, or for that matter, even after the making of the constitution of the India, it failed to give any response, it failed to produce any response. And the question is why it is so. Because those who know the problem, those who understand, those who claim to be educated, those who claim to be intellectuals, those who claim to be secularists, those who claim to be liberals, those who claim to be very, very modernist, those who claim to be very postmodernist even for that matter, it becomes their responsibility. Because Ambedkar says in one of his essays that the purpose of the philosophy is to reconstruct the society, and those who understand must fulfill that particular responsibility. And therefore, what one notices is that irrespective of the education, irrespective of your degrees, no matter what technicalities you get, whether you shoot satellite in the space, whether you have a rocket launching, whether you have everything, but irrespective of that, the society remains where it is. The Babas have gone and the Buas have come and gone. The Babas have come and gone. The Sadhus have come and gone. But society is still there. It is. None of the sadhus in their satsang, or even for that matter, none of those religious gatherings, they will ever address the question of equality and why it is so. This is a fundamental question which one has to raise. And this whole idea, or even for that matter, likes of Radhakrishnan, likes of all this Aurobindo Ghosh, likes of this Vivekanand, they were all Vedantics. Even Gandhi was a Vedantic. And as long as you have a syndrome of Gandhi, you cannot change anything in the society. Gandhi is all about return to the society, return to the antiquity. That's a very clear-cut thing which Dr. Ambedkar says. And therefore, the Indians have to see how much self-introspection they are doing. And it is a duty of the educated class, the intellectual class, the claimed secularists, the liberals, the leftists, to address this particular issue and see what is there, how do you ward it off. At least Baba Sahib said it very clearly that this is a rotten system, that this is a perversion, and that is why I say that caste is a psychotic perversion. Now, I don't want to be the part of this psychotic perversion system. He said it long ago and he left it. But the left, liberals, and all those people have there is a flutter after the conversion. But why that flutter did not empower them to have their own self-introspection? That self-introspection is very necessary. And why it is necessary? Because you have to see whether you can change or not. It is a responsibility of their own self. And the Shudra communities, which is prominently called as the OBC, they are the one who are the flag bearers of the caste system. And it is being monitored by the caste Hindus. It is being directed by the caste Hindus. Can there be so-called Radhakrishnan? He claims in his book that the caste system, India's caste, was an answer to the Islam. This is how he makes it. So there is this whole idea of polarization of the Indian history, which is projected in a binary manner, and this is what all the Vivekanand and Radha and all these people they do. So their idea is so much dominated by this kind of thinking, and therefore they cannot think, because you do not get empowered to rethink. Why that empowerment cannot come? That is because you are ethically, morally corrupt society. You claim that you have a constitution. You claim that you have a constitutional democracy. But is there a constitutional morality? Is there a constitutional political morality? Is there a constitutional social morality? Is there constitutional ethicality? There is no ethicality. There is no morality on the part of the people who are supposed to tell the nation that yes, this is a bad system and that we should fight it out and you should come out of it. But none of those people, they really talk about it. They will ever dare to do that. We have fantastic example in Nagpur, likes of Rupa Kulkarni, realized it and completely shaded it and living a different kind of a life. You have people like Nicholas Dirk, Andre Brete, they are the epitome of intellectual disgust. This intellectual disgust so much goes in every public sphere that they do not want to change that kind of their mindset. And therefore, one has to see how can you rebuild the society. The rebuilding of the society, the rebuilding of the nation cannot be done without breaking caste. Today, everybody is facing pandemic. Every each section of the society is facing pandemic. But why it is so? Why it is so? From the socialist, you are going to the capitalist mode, and you think that your capitalism will solve all the problems, which is utter nonsense. And Baba Sahib made it very clear that the system is not going to survive, that the system is going to kill the OBCs, the downtrodden, the tribals, and everyone. And this is not going to make a healthy nation. And today, everything is made upside down, and today we are seeing a chaos, an absolute chaos, a systemic chaos, a chaos which is anarchy, a chaos which is being practiced as an anarchy. Caste is a psychotic perversion, and which is being practiced in every sphere of life. And this is how the perversion will never ever empower you to change. And that change has to come from within. The change has to come with the change of the ideology, the belief in the constitutional democracy, and also about equality. Talk about equality, whether it is anyone, whether it is any figure for that matter. Are they really talking about equality? Are they discussing about equality? Are they teaching the morality? That is fundamental question. Are they teaching any morality? If your moral self is not being is not being questioned, then what kind of a society you are in? And a society, the so-called educated society, we have photographic evidences where people are banging talis and thalis. So the people banging talis and thalis to ward off the corona on the behest of a political leadership, if we have this kind of attitude, then how can we be scientific rational society? And these are all the educated people who have banged talis and thalis. Excuse me. So one has to rethink on all this, and therefore a rotten system cannot be changed without its rejection of the ideological construct. The ideological construction is very necessary. You have to be moral, you have to be ethical. The political class, the social class, the educated class of this country is the most corrupt, is the most immoral, is the most unethical. And it is because of these principles, it is because of this ideological commitment to this anarchy, to this immorality, to this unethicality. Because of these reasons, the society is still not changing and have not been able to change. No matter whether you send satellite, no matter whether you make any weapon, even change for launching the satellite, you are seeing Panchang. Is that the case? And therefore, one has to rethink this system, and the belief in divine and sacred will never ever caste go away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Alone. I appreciate your passion, I mean, the way you have said, I mean, you're speaking from your heart. And then the whole concept of psychotic perversion, which you brought about, but just relax, we just take up the questions now. You see, there's can we go into the Q&A now? Yeah, okay. So there is an interesting question which has come in. There is, that we have been joined in by Michel Weiss from Switzerland. He's joined us from Asia. Now he is asking, he in fact has mentioned that in my introductory remarks, I referred that this is a uniquely South Asian phenomenon. But anyway, now he wants to link this up with, racism in the US. Now, whether there is a parallel. And then we have, I think we'll join these two questions. There is another question which has come in from Mr. Mandal, and he's in fact addressed it to Dilip, but anybody can take it up. Now he is saying that is the discrimination against Dalits as a class, or is it discrimination per se? So, and then also because Mandla, he's from the South African High Commission here. Now he is coming from a background of apartheid in South Africa. So can we draw, I mean, generally, I'm putting it to the entire panel, can we draw a parallel between apartheid, which used to be there in South Africa, and outright racism as it exists today in US? This can caste and the atrocities against Dalits and Adivasis be drawn as a parallel. Now, Umaji, would you like to answer that to begin with?
I'll make a try.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I think there are resonances. You do see elements of racism certainly in the structure of caste. You also see apartheid comes closer to it in terms of generating hatred and almost like physical as the stigmatization and the kind of political system that apartheid created. I think those are quite close to the experience of what we've seen in the context of caste. It's also a little bit more complicated than there are elements of racism in it, but I also think that racism perhaps one the divine sanction or the divine origins of the caste system as it has been placed, and the sanction that it has been given from antiquity onwards is very persistent in the formulation. Its manifestation may be like may have similarities with racism, but it's actually in terms of its ideology and its capacity to legitimate something that actually is literally impossible to legitimate, except in so you have people actually taking recourse to arguments like the father whose daughter is trying to get married to somebody across caste within the upper caste, but who gets killed by her father. She writes about the constitution, and the father writes back saying, "You are talking about a constitution that is 60 years old. I'm talking about a constitution which is 2000 years old." So he's actually evoking Manu. So in a sense, the problem of the conflation between Hinduism and the caste system makes it so much more pernicious in terms of the manner in which it wields power and it legitimizes othering and legitimizes hatred also. To that extent, I think there is a unique thing in caste. I will see this as a unique institution, and its perniciousness is to that extent as extreme as that. And so, as Borka, as Aloni has pointed out, I mean, how can you? It's so outrageous. Of course, racism is outrageous, and of course, apartheid was outrageous. But it's there. It has stayed in place for over 2000 years, and it is not even looking as though it's been challenged. That's the difficulty. It's not even, it doesn't have enough challenge to it. So to that extent, I feel it's very pernicious.
Professor Aloni, very briefly.
Yeah. Racism, at least, you have that binary. There is a binary, and that binary is very black and white when it comes to racism. The perpetuator of the racism is someone who is from the foreign land. And you are seeing Europe versus others, or for that matter, the white versus black. But in India, it is not about white versus black. It is all about the people within. It is all about the hierarchy within. And that hierarchy within always perpetuates violence. And this violence is of a very dreaded nature. And who is responsible for this violence? And at the same time, the ways in which apartheid is practiced and the ways in which the apartheid at least is being analyzed and talked about and opposed. Why in a similar way caste or the atrocities against the caste does not get magnified or amplified or gets addressed? That is a fundamental question which one has to ask, because it is so easy for a caste Hindu living in US, you living in Europe. It is so easy for them to talk against apartheid, but they will so afraid of talking about their caste system in India, what their own family members have been practicing, what their family members have been the beneficiaries. And therefore, one has to rethink as to how one can really talk about, and not only that, but also go for eradication and go through the constitutional method to eradicate those problems. And at the end, I would like to end, the whole distinction of black and white or binary which is being practiced in through this apartheid lens, and the ways in which the caste is practiced. Not only it is apartheid, but it is a graded inequality which completely the I mean people talk, I mean Professor Uma Chakravarti talk about humanist or where is humanism in India? At least I don't know where it is. I would love to see humanism and humanist in this
Okay,
country.
Professor Alone, let's move to the others. Thank you. Dilip, would you come on this very briefly? We have to be telegraphic.
Yeah, fine. So I think there are similarities and dissimilarities between caste and race. And I think Isabel Wilkerson, in her book "The Origin of Our Discontent," has tried to answer this question in her bestseller, this year's bestseller. And she said that race is like skin and caste is the bone. So caste provides the ideological structure for even the racism to sustain and reproduce and all that. So she studied the three systems. One is German Aryan racial supremacy system. Second system is the racial discrimination and all that in US, and caste systems. She studied all three systems, and she, according to her thesis, there is the caste is the basis of all this discriminatory system. They learn from each other or not, we don't know, but that is the ideological basis. And one major difference is that whereas race doesn't have the religious sanction, but caste has religious sanction, and that makes it more powerful. And according to this Gramscian idea, it creates the consent for the hegemony to persist and perpetuate and reproduce and all that. So I think this caste system is more difficult to it's really difficult to demolish it, and after so many reformers and all that, we see it's still continuing. So I agree with Isabel Wilkerson that this is bone of bone. This is not skin. And yeah, this is my brief submission.
Okay, Sharad? Okay, we can't hear you. Sharad, we can't hear. Hello?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, what Dilip ji said, that's what I was about to say, that the difference, I mean, there are similarities in terms of discrimination, all that, but dissimilarity would be that there is a huge amount of repression, but more than repression, there is hegemony. Like, the people are made to consent using this religious institution. So that difference is there, which is absent in terms of race discrimination, that, that this hegemony, like, you don't have to use repression, but you have to use kind of this, people are made to consent to their own subordination, to their slavery through this agency, which is religious thing, and which is systematically perpetuated. The condition of reproduction of caste system lies in the religious institution. Like, we talk about caste, but we are very scared about talking about religion, because we are scared about, religion means ye to dekho Hindu dharm ko gali de raha hai, because it boils down to that. But probably they are co-substantially linked, because the condition of reproduction of caste system lies in the religious agency that forces people to consent to their own slavery. This Correct. One has to be, and that analysis, the diagnosis, there very much in the works of Dr.
Right.
Babasaheb Ambedkar.
Right. Okay. Now, can I, Meena, can you unmute her, please? Yes, okay. Now, you see, just link this up with another question, which I think is coming to you. This is from Prashant Manikar. He is now coming in from Latur. Okay. Now, he is saying, now link up those two things, what I mentioned about racism and apartheid. Yeah, is that, you see, he's taking up Tamil Nadu. He says, what power does BJP RSS have in Tamil Nadu? I mean, according to him, there is no power. So then, is it that they are both AIDMK and the DMK are glossing over their failures because they are, either of them is in power, so they are glossing over their failures, and so RSS and BJP have become hypothetical enemies. So
Okay.
actually it's their
I'll
own.
answer.
I mean,
No,
they
no, I will answer the questions.
do they do these two, AIDMK and
Yeah, I got it. I got
do
it.
they uphold Sanatan Dharma? They don't. So how do you react to that?
Okay, so I will react to this first of all by I agree with what everyone's been saying, but I also want to say that the Manusmriti is at the heart of the philosophical foundation of the caste system, and it is an ideological system. So when you go to race, I don't think anybody can hold a book and say, okay, this is the book that legitimizes race. But the other thing about the Manusmriti is basically like how Sharad was saying that we wake up in the morning and we inhabit caste. I think there is a certain way in which Manusmriti dictates every aspect of your life. Oh, you don't eat onions, there's a reason it's in the Manusmriti. You don't do this, there's a reason. And also the very other specific thing that was possibly difference between apartheid or racism and caste is that caste is extensively built upon the oppression of women and the endogamy of women. I don't think other systems are as much as they would perpetuate their violence in many other ways. I think the particular control of women, the distrust of women, looking at women as people who cannot be trusted even with their fathers, brothers, sons, people capable of incest all the time. This kind of perversion, like absolute perversion towards women, no other system in the world can hold, including their own women, including Savarna women, including upper caste women, including Brahmin women. And I think that is very specific to caste. Now coming to the issue of is the BJP present or not present in Tamil Nadu, I would like to point out what happened in Pondicherry, which is just next to Tamil Nadu in February 2021. BJP does not have any elected MLA. Kiran Bedi was the governor and she nominated 3 MLAs. But BJP managed to, 2 months before the election, make the entire Congress government fall. They engineered defections, they engineered resignations, and they managed to make sure that a democratically elected Congress government could fall. So I would never underestimate the fact that BJP is not present merely because they do not have electoral presence. So, look at Tamil Nadu. They may not have MLAs, they may not have MPs, but they are going everywhere. It's like in the last 1 or 2 years, there are so many statues of Periyar, so many statues of Anna, which have, have some saffron paint on them, something drawn on their face. And why is it? Why are they having this ideology? So they call up, what's this joker from Bangalore? This young chap who's going to be for future prime minister material.
Tejasvi Surya.
Forget his name. Go ahead.
So Tejasvi Surya.
Tejasvi.
Yeah, Tejasvi Surya comes to Tamil Nadu and says, we are going to destroy Periyarism. Why? And like when Tamil Nadu elections took place, they had a list of 45 speakers of the BJP coming to campaign in Tamil Nadu, right from Yogi Adityanath. So, Tamil Nadu is very much on the horizon because this is the only state.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I'm very passionate about
the last question. We're running out of time. We've crossed this 6:30 deadline. We've already crossed. Now there's a question from Ambassador Fabian. Now just one sec. I've lost the. Okay.
So what you were missing?
Anyway, I've lost that the moderator panel for a time being. So okay, the question is like this: that has Ambedkar been used by certain political parties to gain political power? I mean, he's been used as a tool and not actually believing in his ideology or not even furthering the objectives which he fought for. Now, Alone, can you answer very briefly? Oh, we've lost him? Okay. He's come back? Okay. So, okay, Alone, can you answer that quickly? That question?
Well, Sharad is back.
No. I'm saying to you because we lost you for a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly, yes. The real. I would like to respond in a very different manner. The question is, the who is afraid of caste, and as and when any section of the Indian society talk against caste, they are termed in a political and social sphere as castewalas. अरे ये तो कास्ट वाला है. See, this is how the English speaking people they classify, you know, that particular community or a group, ये तो class वाला है. And the others, when they talk about caste, so there they find them as secular, liberal, moderate, liberal, you know, humanist. So these are the nomenclatures which have been created, and the caste Hindus are the one who are afraid of caste because they are the beneficiaries of caste, and that is why they are afraid of caste. They don't want to kill caste. And at the same time, when you have, I am coming to that. When you have icons.
Professor, can I just interrupt you? You see, I've got the panel back now. This is how Ambassador Fabian had framed it. What has been the political legacy of Ambedkar? Has he been made use of by those who seek power? Is not the BJP also doing it and getting away with blue murder? Okay, so you can reframe that.
Well,
now.
I would like to straight away say this, answer this question. See, there has been appropriation of Ambedkar by all the political outfits in the country, but there is no regard, or for that matter, ideas of Dr. Ambedkar to any political party. For any political party in India, it is so difficult to respond to Ambedkar's annihilation of caste, philosophy of Hinduism, and riddle in Hinduism, or even for that matter, revolution and counter-revolution in ancient India. So these are the very difficult things which the political parties would not like to respond. They would simply, for the namesake, would appropriate, but will not do anything. Will not do anything at all. And just because the political reservation exists in this country, the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are talked about. Had there not been even a political reservation in this country, that the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes would not have been talked about. Rather, their voices would have been butchered by now.
Fine. So can we move to Sharad now quickly? We are losing time now.
I'll answer very, very briefly. Actually, the disease, let's call it kind of, I'm using this strong metaphor for this because Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has used that, you know, our society is so diseased, and the remedy that he has suggested is so powerful. To use Georges Bataille, a French philosopher's word, it's so heterological that, you know, no political party can take that remedy in its spirit, because it is so powerful that it doesn't suit many people. Okay, because icon, the image, the photo is appropriated by everyone from Nagpur to, you know, Baramati and everywhere. That photo will be taken, but the remedy is like, you know, like it's a powerful chemo that, you know, one has to get rid of that disease, but that powerful chemo, not many political parties are ready to risk that. So that is there, that risk is there.
Fine. Umaji? Unmute. Just one sec, we have to unmute you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I really don't need to say much because others are answering so brilliantly, but there is no doubt that instrumental use has been made of Babasaheb Ambedkar, and a complete denial of the agenda that he actually posed. So everyone is guilty of it.
So kind of a dichotomy emerging, totally. Okay, Meena, go ahead. I think you know.
I have nothing to add except that Ambedkar's image, as you know, Sharad said, could be appropriated, but there is no way his ideology can be swallowed by the Sangh Parivar. He will always stand as, you know, testament to exactly what they opposed. He broke the Manusmriti through his constitution. He broke Sanatana Dharma through what he did, you know, whether it's the for women, or whether it's for labor laws, or whether it's for Dalit people, or whether it's for, you know, the country. So there is no way in which Ambedkar will ever be digestible to Sanatana Dharma.
Okay, Dilip. Unmute him, please. Yeah, go ahead. No, yeah. Go ahead. Dilip, go ahead. No. Unmute him, please. Yeah, go ahead.
So, nothing much to add. I agree with Meena that it's very difficult to appropriate Ambedkar. And yeah, those imageries and photo frames and statues, that they can use for political purposes, but the idea and ideology of Ambedkar can't be appropriated. So if somebody or anybody reads Ambedkar, I think it's it's opposed to the idea of Manusmriti and all that. So it's
Okay, fine.
his ideas
So
are
I
very
think-
difficult to appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think now we'll have to, Professor Alone, I think we'll have to close now. We have crossed the time. You know, there's some, we have some restrictions. Okay, now you know what
Let me make a final comment. I just would like to add that, in the history of parliament of this nation, when it came to Hindu Code Bill, only 6 members of the parliament were in favor and rest were all opposed. And these are the opposed people, those so-called member of parliaments. They are the one who are being eulogized today, or even they were eulogized even by the Congress regime. So you have to understand how public sphere is constantly getting reimagined and constantly getting imposed with these kind of anti-women personas in India, and consequently they are also anti-Ambedkar personas in India.
Okay, fine. Now, you see, actually at the end, I think I must, there are 3 greetings which I have to give. I mean, we are in a pandemic situation. You know, some have questioned, why are you holding this meeting when we are, undergoing such a surge and the people are dying, pyres are being lit across. I mean, but why are you holding this kind of a meeting? But, you know, it is sometimes important to maintain one's sanity in all these situations that one discusses such critical issues, even at this time, you know. So now, first of all, I must give you May Day greetings. Somehow we should have begun with that. May Day greetings to all of you. Second of all, I must greet you on Maharashtra Day today. And third of all, I mean, though it's 15 days up, but on Baba Sahib's 130th birth anniversary. You see, now the last point which I would like to make is that there is a unanimity in this entire panel that we are in a denial mode. You know, I mean, the Ministry of External Affairs denies that we are a casteist society. You know, in the UN fora, repeatedly they say, no, there is no casteism. Now we have to get out of that. You know, well, that's one thing. The other thing which has now come out in unanimity and across is that whoever grabs the statue of Ambedkar or his picture, you know, or some kind of a banner, it is going to make no use, because this is all tokenism. You know, people will eventually see through all this, because they are just putting a facade just for the sake of picking up votes, you know. But they will, I hope the people realize that they do not represent either Ambedkar in ideology or in deeds or in thinking, nothing. You know, they say something, they do something, and they think something totally different from Ambedkar. So we must realize that, and I hope these kind of discussions will carry this message forward. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
I actually feel that we should answer that question. I think it's an apt moment to discuss Ambedkar, because Ambedkar's focus on humanity and compassion is unique in his anti-casteist position, but also in his analysis of fraternal relations. So I think Ambedkar alone at this point of time will let us feel what a disaster we are facing and how we must respond to that moment of disaster. So I don't see it as redundant to talk about it today.
Yes, no, that's how we kept this meeting through, in spite of things, because there were some cancellations in the past few weeks, but we kept on, because you are very right, Maji. This is critical to keep the I wouldn't like it candle, but in Hindi you say mashal. You know, in Marathi also use that word. So the mashal should keep burning. You know, the spirit of freedom, and the spirit of fraternity, as you rightly said. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you. I also wanted to add to what Doctor says. Anand jail today, one of the biggest Ambedkarite scholars, is in jail today. We have more than 16 people who are all in some way or the other Dalit activists, Ambedkarite voices who are in jail in Taluja or in Baikula. And today we saw news about Sudha Bharadwaj unable to even be shifted to a hospital. So today is the time we have to talk about caste, because what happens to an anti-caste person under this dispensation? What happens when you challenge caste in India? I think Bhima Koregaon is the foremost example of what happened.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.